let's do the bit where the men get to be the person who recognises from the tone in their child's voice that they're hungry, because there's that particular pitch they use when they're hungry and they're ready with a snack. Like, the oxytocin hit is real. That moment where you do get to meet someone else's needs is lovely, and men deserve to have that.
Welcome to Separate Bathrooms. My name's Daddo.
I'm Daddo.
We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land on which we are recording today. We're talking about a book today, honey.
We are.
You'll Be a Wonderful Dad is the title.
It's so lovely. It's written by a lady called Ailsa Wild. She's an author, performer, and creative facilitator. How's this? Her work includes collaborating with microbiologists to translate complex science into graphic novels and picture books. What is that?
What the hell?
That is wild. Anyway, she has written multiple books, and she's here to talk to us about her latest.
It was Father's Day recently. This would have been a great gift, I think, for a lot of young dads. And so I think fathers of any age, actually, because this is great wisdom inside this book.
Yeah, it's a great read. It's a quick read and it's a great read. Let's get Ailsa in and we'll explore what's in the book.
Ailsa, welcome to the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me.
Look, you've written this fantastic book. Thank you.
Yeah, I have. I'm feeling very proud of it.
Yeah, on behalf of all dads and dads-to-be, thank you.
Why did you write this book, Ailsa? Where did it come from?
It came from a letter. So before it was a book, it was a letter. One of my very, very dear friends who I absolutely adore told me that his partner was pregnant. And at that point, I think my child was maybe 2. And I thought, I really, really want Dave to have a whole bunch of information that can make things go better for him. And interestingly, before this, but when I was pregnant myself, I was like, the advice, it's so annoying.
Yeah.
Parents get so much advice.
Yes.
But actually, it's the women who are getting so much advice. And anyway, so then I was just thinking about Dave and how much I wanted things to go well for him and for his partner. And I kind of wrote this letter just straight from, I guess, partly my struggles, but also the things that myself and my partner had done well. And I sent it to Dave, and then he ended up sending it to a couple of his friends. And then I ended up sending it to a couple more of my friends. And one of my friends started sending it to every single father-to-be she knew. And suddenly it kind of had this life. And there was a point where this woman I did not know on Facebook was like, oh my gosh, I read that letter. And I was like, who even are you? And I realized that it was kind of finding a place in a lot of people's hearts and families, I guess. And that from there it grew into being a book.
Oh, well, it's called You'll Be a Wonderful Dad, Advice on Becoming the Best Father You Can Be. And it was, I understand why it's gone, like why the letter went sort of viral, and how lovely the book is too, because it's just so friendly. It actually, the whole book reads like a letter. It reads like someone just sitting down and going, okay, look, here's what you can do. Here's what's going to help. And it's not in your face. It's not you should, you da-da-da-da-da. It's just got a lot of beautiful advice in it. I read it this morning, actually, and it was a quick read, but it was so informative at the same time. And I kind of feel like that's the book you know, when you have like a baby shower, this is the book you put in with the bundle and you give it to the dad to be. But some of all of it, but some of what I loved so much about so much of what you wrote, there's one part in here. You say the first thing is it's her body doing the birthing. She gets to make the decisions about how the birth goes. Patriarchal structures around birth have historically devalued women's bodies and women's understanding of their own needs. Cultures are slow to change, and elements of this still affect birthing conditions, in particular for disabled and gender diverse people and people of color. I read that and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so so true. And we're watching, what's happened in America right now with, making abortion illegal. But I just loved that because it's just the devaluing of women's bodies and women's understanding of their own needs. I mean, that's across the board in so many things. And if we can't even have the value of our own body and the understanding while we're going through the biggest physical experience, then, where are we going from there?
Yeah, and the number of women who have a story to tell about not being listened to
Yes.
by a health professional.
Yes.
Most women I know have a version of that story. And it's really interesting because I also don't want to undervalue the amazing work that, maternity wards and
Yep.
midwives and obstetricians, they are experts. The truth is they are experts, but also so are women.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
That there's
Yeah.
a teamwork that can happen there for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Ailsa, have you had any pushback from men on this? You're a woman writing a book about fathering.
I know. And honestly, I feel nervous about that and it hasn't happened yet.
Great.
So I imagine that it might. I feel weird about being a woman telling men what to do. But I also think that what I'm doing is, what I wrote was a letter to someone I really like about how to do a really good job of supporting his partner who's experiencing in some way what I experienced.
Yeah.
And, and I was very much thinking about him and how it would be for him to read that and the places where sometimes you might feel defensive and annoyed and wanting to make sure that I could kind of reach him through that feeling or so what I hope is that any man who actually sits down and reads it will find something in it for himself. But also I imagine there would be men who would think, why would I read this? And fine, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess you as an artist or an author, you're never going to please everybody. Yet what I found, it's much in the same way with Ali's book on menopause. It wasn't so much, it was a very kind, like Al's book on menopause is a bit like a letter again, which is like what yours is. I've not read your entire book, but I read the beginning of it and I've sort of had a quick squeeze through the different parts of it. And the tone of it, it felt like it's not really telling me how to think or feel, or it's just making these really beautiful, kind suggestions about, what to look forward to and how, and also to notice other people and to practice that. And I really enjoyed that. So, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And one of the things I was thinking about was, I can't say everything. This book can't say everything. It can't be everything.
Yeah.
But what I'm hoping is it's just a lot of little flags in the sand of going, here's a thing to think about. And the other thing is that as well as it being, not me telling men exactly what to do, although sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'm very straight talking and I say, you need to think about, are you going to split your super with your partner because she's not going to be getting super for that period of time.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying do it, but I'm saying think about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm saying listen to your partner. Like all the way through, I'm like, I'm suggesting this. Your partner might feel differently about how to best support her. So I feel like that's an important element of it as well. Don't do what I say. Do what works for you both.
Yeah, because your intention is for the male in the relationship to have a fabulous experience as being a dad, and that comes through.
Yes.
Like because you can feel that was your intention the whole way through. Because clearly, as you said, it started as a letter to a dear friend, and so you were coming from a very heart open place of like, how do I support this fellow? And so that's really you can feel that intention in the book, that it's about here's what I want for you. I want you to be great. I want you to be the best dad. So you can do this and you can do that, and that's going to make her feel great, or And you'll be connected deeply more so with your child and the baby. And so it was really beautiful. Did you get sort of the advice mostly from your relationship, or was it did you talk to other people, or was it just a natural flow on from the letter that you got the advice from?
I think it's a bit organic, and I feel like I, like many mums, I guess, of my generation, spent a bunch of time on little private mums Facebook groups. And so, and I'm a listener a lot of the time. I do love listening to people's stories, and so I feel like I was not really necessarily consciously gathering information, and yet at the same time I was gathering information.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I talk about in the book, is that way that women culturally are gathering information, and particularly about parenting, and men culturally less so. There's less of that conversation and passing on of information about parenting that is happening with men. And I think I definitely used that when I was writing the book. And, you know, a bunch of my friendships. My dad was a stay-at-home dad when I was really little. In the 70s, when that was, you know, not an early 80s, and that's not, it was a pretty socially isolating choice for him in some ways, but it was also, you know, that's part of my childhood as well.
Yeah, right.
So he kind of mentored this idea. Well,
in some ways, yeah, there's definitely little bits of my dad in this book. And my brother as well, who he became a parent before I did, and I really watched him kind of throw his heart into the love and labour of looking after his children, and he did it so beautifully, and that just was an inspiration for me as well as my own, watching how my own relationship was operating.
I have to admit, when we were doing this, I did have apprehension about speaking with you, because I was like, oh, you know, my kids they're over 16. They're kind of done in terms of really needing the nuts and bolts of stuff. It's like, you know, I've read a lot of different books on fatherhood, and I'm like, oh, is this just going to take me into a place of really big self-flagellation? You know, I'm going to take the big stick out and go read your book and go, you didn't do that, you didn't do that, you didn't do that, you didn't do that. So yeah, I'm still in that place, because as I said before, I haven't read it. I just haven't given myself the time, and maybe that's because I was scared, because I don't want to take out the guilty stick, or the regret stick, and because I don't want to have regrets. And for me, I feel like, oh God, and I certainly don't want to defend my fathering. At this point, I will say I did the best I could, as my father, I think, did the best he could with what information he had. Speaking of information, you wrote, well, the book came, as you said, because you wrote a letter to a friend. Do you feel like that there was a void of information out there, that's why you put it out there, because there was room and there was something that you can fill? Because there are a lot of books out there on fatherhood, good ones too.
So what are your highlights of those books on fatherhood?
Oh gosh, well, the highlight for me, Stephen Biddulph's Manhood. I keep coming back to that. There's another book called Real Boys, Raising Boys, but this is about boys,
Raising
and this
boys.
is the Manhood one. Really, with Stephen Biddulph, to me, is a great book, because he covers fatherhood and raising boys. It's quite a broad thing. The highlight for me, which is more of a negative, I think, but it's something to build upon, is that this notion that a lot of men today were underfathered or underfathered, that they didn't have mentors. And they grow into this idea of being phony men, because they're living to this idea of what it is to be a man or a father. And my big push through my charity, my men's team, and getting guys together, is about keeping families together and having the father be in there, enmeshed in the family, and
right in the middle, right in the middle of the family.
and being there through all the minutiae of it, because it's real easy to push all that stuff away and be a passive dad, you know. And I've been guilty of that, I know. Yet I've tried going, oh, hang on, you just get involved. Like I was away a lot. So Elle took a lot of that stuff on, school stuff, lunches, driving to school, I was on location a lot through their infancy and early years. But that's where I'm at. So, I mean, do you feel like there was a void?
Yeah, look, so I went into the bookshop. Actually, before I wrote the letter, I thought, I really, at that point, a book had just recently come out that was edited by Jamila Rizvi called The Motherhood. And it's a collection of stories of women talking about their birth, giving birth. And they're really personal stories, and it's a lot of women. And I read it and I thought, I want that book, but for Dave. Like, I want him to have this collection of stories of men talking about what it was like to become a father. And I went into Readings, which is a bit of a classic bookshop here in Melbourne, and perused the shelves, and so much of the parenting books and the birth books were aimed at women. It was just so much of it was aimed at women, and I thought I couldn't find the one for Dave that I wanted, which was about those really early days of what it's like to have a brand new baby in the house. So in that sense, yes, I did see a void. But also I feel like this is a book that's of a really particular time when women just more recently have started talking about what is the mental load. What is the mental load of a family? That's not a kind of phrase that was in use 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There's the conversation about what is emotional labour. And I feel like it's kind of just like a bunch of conversations we're having now that it's just useful to go, these are some phrases and this is what they mean and what does that mean for you and how does that impact how you see yourself as a father? And so I guess in that way it's a new part of the conversation.
So when you were talking, when you were on your Facebook groups with all those mums and stuff, was that the common theme that you kept on hearing, was the mental load, and what were they actually defining in that moment? What is the mental load for mums that they're sort of not complaining about but actually putting a voice to now?
Yeah, so and I think that it's different for different people, right? It's different for different families and it's different in different relationships. We're all individuals and we've all got different things going on. But, there's classic things like thinking about the shopping and thinking about what food is going to be cooked and thinking about who is going to clean the house and when and who's going to do the drop-off and when and what are the different activities that children are doing and who's going to drop them off and who's got the book week costume organised.
Yeah.
That there's a birthday party on Saturday. Is there a present? Is there a card? Is there wrapping paper in the house? And, just all those kind of the minutiae of that and I feel like different couples divide that labour differently. But there is kind of some classic stereotypical gender roles that this is the woman's job. And I think it's just really great as a couple to go, how can we work best as a team? Like, what is all the labour that between us we have to do to make our family have the best time that our family can? And then how can we share that labour between us and not have someone kind of quietly and resentfully doing it without having those conversations, I guess.
Yeah. I remember I had a realisation earlier on in our relationship, and again, this is not about being a bad dad, honey. It was, I remember
I'm ready.
Going to the beach with the children, going to the beach. Cam gets his towel and his goggles and gets in the car and wonders why it takes so long for everyone to get into the car. So I am there, 3 kids, I am getting all the kids' towels, I'm getting the snacks, I'm getting the sunscreen, I'm getting the beach toys, I'm making sure that they've got things that they might need afterwards. They might need something warm to change into, they might need a change of clothing. And it's sort of like, God, he's like, guys, you guys take so long. And I'm like there with like my huge duffel bag full of stuff. And, not to mention the fact that as a woman, you got to make sure that, you don't have to make sure that, you've shaved your legs, but, there's like, oh God, am I ready?
Oh, no,
that's part
very
of it
important.
as well.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And I remember one day going, well, I mean, that's the mental load. That's the mental load that I'm doing right now. You've you've grabbed you got your goggles and your beach towel, and of course you're ready to go. But like as the mum, I'm like making sure that 3 kids are ready for a beach day, so my day can be better as well, rather than screaming hungry children at the beach too. So I know exactly what what you mean, but I remember that moment of realizing that Cam's sitting over there with his hands between his knees going, oh God.
Can I just say, it is amazing. It's such a useful conversation to have. It's just a really useful conversation to have. Cam, you've got the best smile on your face. I had this great experience like 3 weekends ago. My partner and my child and I went to the mountains, and for whatever reason, I was super busy, and he packed everything except my bag. And I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. This is so easy. I just packed my own bag. It took me 5 minutes while I was waiting for a Zoom meeting to start. And it was so different to how many other of the packing for adventures that I've done in the past. And, why not share? Why not share that sometimes you have that experience?
I thought you were going to say then, and he didn't pack my bag. What a bastard.
I know.
And I was about to go, hang on a second. He's not going to go near your undies and stuff.
No. He's fired. That's it. That's it.
Well, I can plug that Ellie's beach story into all manner of things like trips on aeroplanes or car trips. Yeah. And Ellie would always organise the entertainment for the kids, like especially on a long aeroplane ride from Los Angeles to Australia. There were snacks and board games and colouring in books and crayons and all that sort of thing. So there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to it, isn't there? My sister always talks about she always uses this word bandwidth. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I can't fit that in, And I guess so. Ali, where do you think we are? If you were to rate us A, B, C, D, like school, like you're marking a school test.
Oh, don't do that to me.
where are we? Because I'm going to say we're like C.
Well, but
for me, being involved in that sort of stuff.
Yeah, look, I think if I had have read your book a lot earlier, it would have been very different. I would have actually said, I actually need you to make the dental appointments for the kids. I actually need you to organise this. I would have said more. So I sort of was coming from a very traditional place in my parenting in a lot of ways, and I was so happy to be a stay-at-home mum. That's all I ever wanted to do. There is a cost to that, and because you were away so much, the cost to that is all of that mental load and the juggles, and and that's when, as I'm sure you've heard Ailsa so many times about, and then the husband comes back from a trip and wants the wife to be like, oh my God, darling, you're here. Let's rush to the bedroom and have sex. Where the woman just goes, for the love of God, take the child. I think you've got a story in there where like a woman actually would walk to the bus stop in order to hand the child to the husband.
That's me.
Oh, that's you.
That's me. That's me. At the tram stop, just being like, take the baby because I need room around my body now.
Yes. Yes.
That was when, it wasn't a regular occurrence, but it was definitely at least one day when that happened.
Can I say that I was brought up by a traditional father who was brought up by a traditional father, and meaning that, our job was hunting and gathering and coming home, and the family was really the wife's part of it, and I watched my dad and then I sort of learned from other people, I guess, little bits and pieces, but certainly once we had children and we were getting help from outside and suggestions were being made to me, that I was like, okay, I can do this extra bit. And sometimes I'd be like, but that's not my job. That's not what I watched my dad do. He left home at 7:30 in the morning and he came home at 6:37 at night. Dinner was ready. Mum did everything. 5 children, So, and Dad would play golf on Saturdays or mow the lawn. And we'd listen to the footy together on Saturday afternoons. But what I'm finding now, and this is where your book is so wonderful, is that I think today it feels to me that men are way more receptive to wanting to step in and assist. Because, look, a happy wife, they say happy wife, happy life. So
Oh, yeah, they do.
what you're, and it's true though, it's absolutely true. So the less load that your partner, or in this instance, Ali's carrying, the more receptive she is to me, and there's more room basically. So it's really great. And I would highly recommend, just from the bits I've read, that any young father, or just, anyone with kids, really have a read of it and see what you can do and pass it on, pay it forward.
Thank you. I just want to talk about that, some of the pleasure of some of those jobs. Like, it's true, the mental load is intense and there's that bandwidth of all the things, but also the little pleasures of meeting a small person's need are really beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's something men deserve to have.
Yeah.
So partly I'm saying, let's share the load and let's make that equal, but also I'm saying let's share the love and let's make that equal. So let's do the bit where the men get to be the person who recognizes from the tone in their child's voice that they're hungry, because there's that particular pitch they use when they're hungry and there's ready with a snack. There's a kind of, I say it in the book, the oxytocin hit is real. Like, that moment where you do get to meet someone else's needs is lovely, and men deserve to have that.
That's so beautiful. You've written also, I'm just sort of got some dog-eared, because this is I thought this was so beautiful. This is basically exactly what you're talking about. You say sometimes men feel disconnected or less loved or less important when a baby comes along, as if the mother and the baby are everything and they are on the outer. If you're feeling that, know that it will pass, and it's not the truth. There is a place for you to be right in the middle, to have your big, good heart wide open, to give and receive all the love. That's so beautiful.
Now that you're reading it to me, I'm getting slightly teary, and it's because that was something that I wrote to my friend.
Yeah.
And I didn't want him to have that feeling of being on the outer, and I knew that he could bring his big love and be right there and in the middle of that.
And speaking as someone who felt like that quite often, and I spoke to Ali about that. Just like, I'm not part of this. It was really, they were really tough moments.
Yeah.
And yet it was pointed to me at the time to go, nah, there is your spot. I'm getting emotional. It took a lot, because there is that fear, and it hit me as a man in a very childish, infantile place of being not part of something, and having the reflection of a young child and looking at the mother-child connection, which they need. I mean, this is where the baby gets the nurturing from for the first 12 months, really. And our job is to be there, take the baby, clean the baby, hopefully, I see a lot of young dads now with bottles. My niece is married to a wonderful young man who's very much part of it and sits there and plays with his young boy all the time, and feeds him and is part of that. And the more that we trust that we are part of this process, the better off we're going to be. And I think the ripple effect of that through life, and feeling that we are a part of something and included, the ripple effect of the exclusion can lead to all sorts of problems down the road. And similarly, the inclusive part of it makes us feel like we're always connected. And I think that this is a huge part of our society's moving forward. And as I said to Elle, when she read the book, I'm like, so is this just for newborns? I mean, for new families, or is it a book for every family? And do you feel like it is a book for everyone?
Yeah, look, it's a bunch of it is so specific around pregnancy and birth and newborns, because it was written at that time. And it's interesting, you're the second person who's asked me that today. Like, someone just tweeted me and was like, can I give this to someone who, and I was like, it's interesting because in some ways it is talking specifically about that time, but I think that there is something a bit universal in it about just how we love, really, and how we love our families, and that love is a feeling in our chest, but it's also the labor of our hands and our minds.
I agree. Because I think no matter how old the kids are, just reading that in your book about the divide of the mental load and just sort of the lifting that veil of going, oh, I didn't even think about that for my partner. I didn't even understand that may have been challenging for her. I feel like that can outplay itself at any age, or just even if you don't have kids. Like what's the mental load that your partner is taking on now? And maybe it's vice versa. Maybe it's something to be asking your husband, what kind of mental load are you dealing with at the moment as well that's really, really challenging? What are the changes that you would like to see from your book in families?
I would like to see men feeling like they can be right there in the middle of their family, and in that way where they're really aware of the minutiae of what's happening, and they're able to meet those little needs because they can see them, because they've been there, and that from that presence there is a kind of a big love and a big respect between all the people in the family.
Yeah, beautiful.
It was Father's Day recently, and in the book you talk about Mother's Day and Father's Day being effed. I'm not gonna drop the F bomb here, but you say it's effed. Why do you say that? Can you elaborate?
Well, I just remember the quote in the book is from a woman on Facebook who was like, "This is a bullshit appeasement operation." She was like, "Why do I get, fluffy slippers? I work my ass off and then one day a year someone tells me that I'm good, And the reason that's bullshit is because the work's not happening the rest of the year. You know what I mean? And so, they're not completely. I think it's really good to acknowledge mothers and fathers on those days. But there are, and it's the massive consumer thing about it of like, buy something, like that moment where you wake up and you're like, oh, it's the day before Father's Day and I didn't get him anything, and now I'm just going to go and spend $150 on an expensive bottle of whiskey and that'll solve something. Like, I just think the consumer element of it is not useful at all. It's not useful for people's relationships necessarily, but sometimes it's nice to get a present as well. So, I don't know. I'm not anti completely.
Yeah.
I also, I love getting acknowledged on Mother's Day. But there's some stuff about it that's whew.
Yeah, do it every day. Celebrate them every day.
Do it every day.
Oh, it would be nice.
Celebrate it. But do it especially on Mother's Day, even more.
A little bit extra. We had a question that came in to our inbox. It's actually about Father's Day, and it's a tricky question. Could we offer it to you and get your advice on what you think this listener could do in help-wise for her and her family?
Sure.
It says, we are a long-term split family. 8 years they've been split. I offer the kids to see their dad on Father's Day if it's not his weekend, because I feel supporting them having a relationship with their dad is important. The split is acrimonious, but I try to keep it as calm as possible. The dad chose not to see the kids on Father's Day again, and he only lives 5 kilometres away. He's done this a couple of times over the years, and the kids hurt, and I sometimes cop the fallout. And she's got 2 teenage boys. He has no relationship with the oldest, and the youngest is a girl, doesn't want to see him at all. Father's Day gets raised a lot at school with gifts, stalls, and this is, I think, what you were talking about, the consumerism, talking about what you did with dad on the day, weekends afterwards in the classroom and with mates. They have no other male role models in their lives except for the teachers and sports coaches. How do you think this plays out in adult relationships for both the boy and the girl? And how, as a parent, can we help her feel validated when the other parent doesn't show up for them? And is it, and is there long-term effects of this? We have conversations about dad's behavior. It's him, not them? What would you do? It's a big question, I know, but any advice from you would be great.
I think it's huge.
Yeah.
I feel like it's huge, and I really feel for this person because she is really, holding the mental health and well-being of her children. She's carrying that for the whole family, and she's completely alone with it, it seems like. It's, we're obviously just getting her picture, and we're not hearing from him at all, but that feels like that is really hard. I think the thing I've said, I've got a couple of friends who are single mums whose dads are, the dads are pretty out of the picture for various reasons. And the main thing I just want to tell them over and over again is you're enough. You are enough. You are enough. And, if he's not there, he's not there.
Yeah.
And you can't fill that gap, but you're enough for your child. Like, I've seen women kind of launch into relationships with men that aren't that great because they want a father figure for their child, partly. That's something they're looking for. And actually, their child doesn't need that. Their child just needs the parent who is there and who can be with them. I don't have anything particular to say about Father's Day. It's probably going to be hard, and try to do something sweet for yourself while you're doing all those sweet things for your kids.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so entwined in emotion, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so much emotional aspect to it, and needs not being met or being met. And the idea of active fatherhood and having an active father in there. Stephen Bedolf wrote that if, basically paraphrasing, that men will never get their life as men to work if they don't have active fathering. Do you have any comment about that sort of thing?
I mean, I feel like that's tricky because I know a bunch of families with two mums, and they're brilliant.
Yeah,
they're brilliant. There's a bunch of boys being raised by two mums, and I guess when we're talking in this way, we're really kind of essentializing gender, and there's a bunch of things that a woman will do that we think of as a man's role, and actually, I think that it's really tricky to say a boy needs a man in his life. Lots of boys don't have men in their lives. And I think that the adults in their life who are around them, who can bring their full selves to the relationship with the child, that has to be enough, because they're out there. They're out there. The people who have been raised by only women, they're out in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Some of them are doing beautiful, beautiful things. I think it's true that if a father is, I don't know, I just very recently read Rick Morton's autobiography. I can't remember what it's called, but he talks about having a very absent father and the trauma of that. And he goes through this kind of process of examining that trauma of the father being present but absent. And I think that's how I see that Steve Biddulph quote as being really relevant. And that's what this woman is experiencing as well, is a father who's around, who's there, but inactive, which is really different from a single mum who's doing a brilliant job as a single mum and not having that absent present father, or a two mother family. Similarly, there's no active father in that relationship. But I think having a present but absent father, that's hard.
I think you're right. Yeah. Same if it was the mother as well, that's hard to.
Having a present but absent mother.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I have a friend who was raised by an alcoholic mother, and having the present absent of that alcoholic parent, that's a childhood trauma.
Absolutely. Oh, well, look.
Yeah.
You'll be a wonderful dad. Is a gorgeous book. it is a love it's a love story to dads out there. And thank you for writing it. It's just so sweet. And yeah, as I say, I think it should be just be a little handbook for any new dads of toddlers, and maybe older dads too. So it's been really lovely talking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was really lovely to meet you both, and I just loved how you brought yourselves so much to the conversation. It felt really real having you both in the room with me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ailsa.
Thank you. There's a lot to talk about in that heart place of mothers, fathers, parenting. You know, there's so much to explore still, I find. I mean, it's a part of life that I adore, as you know, having been a birth assistant. It's those beginning years and how we parent ourselves and how we parent our children. Yeah. There's just so much in there, and the that foundation work is so important.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing, because we didn't actually talk about parenting ourselves. But that, I remember when we were young parents, we were also actively encouraged to learn how to parent ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't be as good a parents to our children if we didn't really have a handle on our own feelings and how to sort of fulfill the needs of us. I will read the book now, and
now you're through feeling a little.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I have to really dig into my feelings about what I was feeling before we talked about it. In that, what was it that stopped me from reading it? Aside from the fact that I've been pretty busy. But when you said you read it in the morning, I'm like, maybe I should have done that. I will do it now, because it's just having a chat with Ailsa just then was fantastic. Really, really, really good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it is the most important job in the world. If you do go down that path of becoming a dad, and let's face it, it's pretty easy to do, and you do find yourself in that situation, it's a privilege, and one that you need to take really seriously.
Yeah.
And it's such a joyful thing.
It can be. I mean, I don't think there's anything better than being a parent. I love it. I love it. I love talking about it. I love being a parent.
We got to go. I have a question for you. Would you rather been a father or a mother? What do you reckon?
Oh, definitely a mum. Definitely a mum. All right. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time on Separate Bathrooms.
Bye for now.